Elementary music teacher friend, you love what you do, but you might feel unappreciated and, in fact, unseen some days. You may even feel like you're on a music teacher island and just want to connect with other music teachers who can relate to both your struggles and wins when it comes to teaching elementary music. I get you and understand completely the feelings you're having. That's why each and every week, the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast will provide you with solo and guest episodes that will help you realize you're not alone in your music teaching journey. Throughout each episode, my goal is for you to be able to walk away with actionable steps and ideas to help you feel like you're ready to take on the new week with whatever challenges may be thrown your way. Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Peresta, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you're at home, in your car, in the shower, or wherever else you're listening, grab your cup of coffee or whatever other beverage is nearby and listen in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Well, hello, my friends. Have you wanted to advocate for your music program or for yourself as a music teacher, but you just honestly don't know how? You just never have quite the right words come out, or you don't know what to say or do? This episode is for you. I interviewed the amazing Rainy Barton about the importance of advocating for yourself as a music teacher. What exactly does that mean? What are practical ways you can do that? And how can you advocate for yourself with your administrators, the families you work with, and your community? So it's a little different right now, let's be honest, because we're living during a pandemic. And so anything that we would give advice around when it comes to music education, you got to kind of take advice and then run with it based on your teaching situation, or hold on to ideas that you can definitely implement in a typical school year. So she gives ideas for both, though, how she advocates during a normal school year and how she's kind of changed things up during a pandemic. But let me tell you a little bit about Rainy before we jump into her amazing episode. She graduated from the University of Florida with a Bachelor's in Music Education and is currently in the process of receiving her Orff-Schulwerk certification. She absolutely loves the Orff-Schulwerk and Kodaly methods and implements them both within her classroom on a regular basis. She is also currently a member of the Florida Music Educators Association and its subgroup FEMEA. As far as whimsically musical goes, Rainy has always thought of herself as a whimsical person. She likes to go against the grain and come up with new and exciting things and live life to the fullest. That's why she started a blog, a YouTube vlog, a TPT store, and a Facebook page. Rainy's goal is to help other music teachers in the teaching community by sharing what she's learned about activities that work well, classroom behavior management strategies, etc. She feels we all work better as a team and loves meeting other teachers and getting to share our teaching journeys together. So I'm so excited for you to listen to this episode. This conversation is very needed and was awesome, and she presented so many new and amazing ideas that I've honestly never even thought of before. So I hope that you're going to get so much from this episode, and I cannot wait for you to listen in. So Rainy, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah. So I, first of all, want to say this is totally just random, but I love your name. So
Thanks.
I love unique names because, being Jessica, it's kind of funny because my sisters, I'm the middle of three girls and they're Geraldine and Jana. So I'm always to my parents like, what happened? Like, not that I hate my name, but I'm like, they both have unique names. And I'm like, it was like the most common 80s name besides Jennifer, I feel like. So.
Oh, you should hear my sisters' names then, because we're all weather names.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have two sisters?
I have 4 siblings, but
the
boys don't have any significance to their names. They're just random names. The girls are all weather names, so it's me, and then Breeze, and then Cirrus, like the cloud.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Rainy, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and, where you teach, what you teach. And I know you do amazing things outside of music education too, so you can tell us all about that as well.
Oh, sure. So I'm an elementary music teacher. This is my 6th year, and I've spent all 6 years at the same school. So that's been really great. Like my kinders are my 5th graders now, and that just makes me feel so like sad and old at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. So the elementary music, And I've been doing that for a bit. And then other than that, I do circus in my spare time. So I teach like silks and trapeze and things. And that's always my fun fact because everyone's like, what are you talking about? But that's a real thing. And there are studios everywhere. So I always say everyone should find one and try it because it's super fun.
Love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember having a conversation with you or hearing you talk about it somewhere. It might have been in a Facebook group or something about, or just seeing you post to Instagram about doing trapeze art. And I was like, what? That's awesome. Yeah, it's so cool. I am not coordinated at all, Rainy. Like,
Oh,
it's
I
so
wasn't
sad.
either. It's a skill that can be learned.
Okay, so I was that kid in elementary school who, no matter how hard the teacher tried to teach me, I still couldn't figure out how to do a cartwheel. It's so
Oh, I
sad.
couldn't do a cartwheel for the longest time. Like it did not compute. And then one day I just did it and was like, oh, I don't know what happened.
Right, over a Thinkers Anonymous club, I feel.
Yeah.
That's probably, yeah, that's a lot of what it is. Well, when we were talking about what we were going to discuss today, you named a few topics, and I really we are going to discuss advocating for yourself as a music teacher first. And so I want to go ahead and talk about that because, first of all, I think this is hugely important, and it's something that, I don't know, I just think music teachers don't talk about it enough because you're always talking about, I mean, you hear self-care being talked about and obviously teaching your students and all those things and lesson planning and all that. But when you talk about advocating for yourself as a music teacher, why don't you just explain to the listeners, first of all, what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So this is very much a passion topic of mine, simply because,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have a supportive admin, then it's, a lot harder. And luckily, my admin are supportive now. I've had, in the past, not as much, but I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
every music teacher goes through that where like they either love music or they could care less about it. It
Right.
is what it is. Um, so it's a passion topic of mine because if you are not actively, advocating yourself and like showing the importance of music, like to your admin and to your community and to the parents and everything, then they're not going to take you seriously. And you're just going to be seen as that teacher that's like, oh, well, they're just a music teacher. Like you're being sent there to have fun. But it's like, yeah, we have fun in there, but they're learning things and they're becoming better humans because they're taking my class.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like we're not, music teachers as a whole, some are better than others, but we're not very good at like necessarily taking the time to really advocate and educate on the importance of it. And it's something that needs to be more heavily focused on because music is, technically is a core subject because it's in
Mm-hmm.
STEAM. So it's like part of the STEAM thing, but a lot of people gloss over that part of it. And it's very important, obviously. There's studies that show, that if you take music that you get better test scores. Like there's all this like science and stuff to back it. And, your mood is more elevated when you listen to music. So like there's so many benefits of it. But I feel like sometimes like people just get caught up in it's just music class thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to like be like, well, there's more to it than that.
Yeah. So speaking of Instagram today, you just read something that just like, wow, that was really good. And of course, now I can't remember where I read it, but someone shared this kind of like open letter a regular classroom teacher wrote. I think she was a second grade teacher too.
Oh, I think I
Music. Did
saw
you see
that.
that?
I
Yeah. And it made me
did.
think of this conversation we're going to have tonight because it was basically like, not that she never valued them, but she said, I got to thinking the other day, I think she said while I was virtually teaching or while I was at my house,
Mm-hmm.
what is the first thing I go to when I'm stressed for relief? And it's something like exercise, art, music, reading a book. And she was like, it just hit me, wow, that it does matter. And I'm like, thank you, and I think that's awesome because sometimes it is just like a aha moment that I feel like needs to happen for adults. Do you feel like that's true?
Oh yeah, no, 100%. That's the first thing I turn to is music. It's just some teachers get it and then it's like, oh yeah, great. Like they understand, like it's just as important. And then sometimes like it's just they don't realize it. But when you do realize like, oh, I do turn to art or I do turn to music and like these sorts of things are like helping me not only mentally, but like they're also helping, better me, then, that's the path to,
Mm-hmm.
success.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to advocating for your music program, I guess there's like direct ways, where you can do, well, in a non-COVID world, you have like some of your students go singing, the public somewhere, or invite people into your school. We can't really do that this year, but
Yeah.
there's also, I feel like, subtle ways too, where, you know, I've even told teachers that even the kids singing songs at home, that's a way to advocate, because then this parent will say, oh, where did you learn that? Oh, my music class. You learned that? What else do you do? And it just kind of opens the door to conversations. So what are your favorite ways to advocate for your music program?
Yeah. So I'll share like one or two that, yeah, you have to wait till COVID's over. But then there are ones that you can do that are not COVID, of course. But I mean, it's just so much harder with COVID. But it'll be
I
over
know.
one day.
One day, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my favorite way, of course, is like doing informances. So, you know, where you have parents come in to the class. I typically will like have the same grade levels every year just do it. So like it's like something exciting to look forward to. So like I think I do kindergarten and fourth usually or something like that. Maybe I do 3 grade levels. I don't know because I'm not doing it this year.
Right.
But yeah, I'll typically like send out a newsletter like inviting parents to be able to come, and that they have to sign up ahead of time by emailing and all of that good stuff, or filling out. I typically will have like a Google survey or a link or something, because that way I don't have too many parents that just show up at once. But ideally, they just get to come in and just be, you know, bystanders and just audience members and just watch class. And I'll like explain a little bit what the kids are doing, just so that they get an idea of like why they're doing it, and like say like we normally wouldn't, of course, do this. Like I explain to the kids a little bit, but not to the level the parents do. But that way they're getting to see like, oh, like they're doing this dance because they're actually learning like these 5 concepts, and then they're doing this which ties into this, and then they're doing all the things. And then the parents normally end up being like, wow, like I had no idea my kid's learning that, or I had no idea my kid knew how to do that, like read all these rhythms and like all these things. And so like every time I've done it, it's been super receptive, and they're all just like, wow, like we need to do this more often. So that's like my favorite way, which I first heard about that, I think, from Eileen Miracle or something, which she's just, you know, wonderful.
Yeah. She has great ideas.
Yeah, she's great. But yeah, so I've done that. And then another way, which I do encourage the kids to tell their parents things. I think I got this from someone else too. I can't remember who though, but they did kind of like little exit tickets, but not exit tickets like where they do an assessment. It's more an exit ticket that like they take with them, and they would say like, oh, like today in music we did blah 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 blah, and you could put whatever it is, and then like they would take that home with them, and their parent, like it could be in their folder or whatever, and then their parents could see that, and they would normally say on it like, ask me to sing this song to you, or ask me to do this. Yeah, and then the parent will be like, oh, like what did you do? Like I just sent one home for the song Ho Ho Watene, because they were doing that lullaby for Native American, and I was like, oh, I wonder if any of them are actually going to sing it. And then I did one for a couple weeks ago, because we did the hustle, because we were reading a book called Halloween Hustle. So I sent home, yeah, you can tell your parents you know how to do the hustle. And then one of the parents like emailed me and was like, I felt very old when my kids started doing that.
I love it.
And I was like, well, I'm glad they showed you. So they like danced together, and I was like, oh yeah, you see, it's working.
Yes, I love that. Oh, it's so fun, because do you feel like I can't label all parents, you know, and I'm a parent, you're a parent, but like some parents still view their elementary music class as what it is today. And not that I'm not dogging all elementary music classes from back in the day, but it's just different than it is now. So they're just thinking your kiddos are just sitting there singing songs and, you know, this year it's different, of course, but in a regular elementary music class, they don't know, like you said, not just all the things you're doing, but all the things kids are learning, and all the ways that all music integration is happening, and all those kinds of things. And so I think it's awesome where parents realize that, and they have those aha moments of why it's important. And I don't know, I just think that's just so important to keep advocating. So I love all those ideas. The exit ticket was an amazing idea. Thank you for sharing that, because I've never heard that before. That's awesome.
I can't say that I came up with that, but I don't remember who did. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, I am doing that.
Yeah, and that's the best way you learn from other teachers, is just by finding like a simple idea, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I'm writing that down because I'm going to forget about it, but I'm using that. That's awesome. So,
yeah, because I mean, I would love for them to share more, but like they tend to forget. So that at least helps them.
Yeah, well, I love the fact that you're sending something home where like a parent can literally just pull out the piece of paper and look at it, because I know my boys come home from school, and first of all, they're boys, so it's always like, good, I don't know, nothing, right, you did nothing today. So I've joked with them before, I'm like, so you literally just went to school today and stared at the wall, you did nothing else. no, mom, but I can't get answers from them unless I see a piece of paper that says, your child learned this, or, oh, here's a graded spelling test or something. So I love that as a music teacher, you're sending that home too, so parents can visually see my child's learning this. I love that. I will get the occasional song, we did this song today,
Yeah,
or mom, did you ever hear this song before? And of course, yes, I did, but
yeah.
like they will sometimes sing songs, and I think music just sticks in kids' brains. They are not always get it immediately after school, and maybe not even that same day, but I think it's hugely a huge way to advocate for music when the kids will remember even like 2 days later a song that they learned with you or an activity, and they're like, mom, do you want to play this game? And then all of a sudden they're like, what do you mean? Oh, I learned this in music class. When did you have music class? 2 days ago, and so
Yeah, and I've
yeah.
seen like the siblings teach each other like songs and
Aw.
stuff. Like I'll come into class and I'll be like about to sing the song, and then they're like, "I know this. My older sister taught me it," and I was like,
That's
"Oh, yay!"
Yeah, that's fun. Okay, so tell me how are you teaching this school year? Are you virtually at school, or what's going on?
No, I'm back in full
You're in.
swing.
Okay. Okay.
I'm half and half, kind of.
Okay.
I mean, my school's fairly small. We only have like 350 kids, I think. It's a pretty small
Mhm.
school. So I do one full virtual day of kids, and then I have 3 days of actual, 3.5 days of actual like in-person classes. And I was on a cart for the first 9 weeks, and that was not fun. And now I'm back
Yeah.
in my room, and that's like great. It also has its own like not so great things, and
Yeah.
so yeah, so I'm like half and half.
Do you feel like, from having conversations with a lot of different music teachers, I've kind of heard similar, of course, the frustrations are there 1000%. But one of the things I have seen with advocating for music is the fact that when you are in those teachers' classrooms, even if it is their plan time, they're still going in and out of their classroom. And even if it is, the kids are at home and they're watching a lesson, maybe you even already sent home, it's not live, but they're watching it
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, that alone is, in a way, if you think about any positive to come out of this school year, is a way of advocating for music, because those teachers, let's be honest, they're just picking up their kids last minute most of the time, but now they're seeing stuff going on that they never seen before. If you're on a cart, parents at home, maybe they're working, and so they're kind of looking over their computer screen like, what's going on over there? But they're kind of involved with it more. So I don't know, have you seen that happen a little bit more during COVID?
Yeah, no, I've seen it for both. For in the classroom, especially, like there's been times where like the kids were doing like, of course, not a true folk dance where you're touching
Right.
and things like, but they were still
Mm-hmm.
doing like a folk dance and all these things. And I've seen like where the teacher like comes in and like sees it, and then she just stops and like films them, and it's like, oh, this is so
Oh.
fun. Or like one teacher even was like, I want to do this, so like she joined us on like an instrument thing. So it definitely has been great, because like you said, like they don't necessarily know what's going on in there, and most of the time they're showing up like last minute or even late to get their kids, so then they're not able to like hear what their kids
Mm-hmm.
are doing. So that's been definitely eye-opening for some of them. Some of them are like, wow, I didn't even know like you did that stuff. And then
Yeah.
the parent way too, I've seen it, because they also don't know what they're doing, and they kind of get to be in on it with them, especially like the littles, because like my
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten kids, like the parents will typically sit by them, because otherwise, they'll be really squirrely or whatever. But like I had what was it? A video. I was using Flipgrid the other day for
Mm-hmm.
something. Oh yeah, I did. I recorded me reading a book, and they had to sing like the song back to me as like an assessment, which was the cutest thing ever. I'm so glad I made them do
Oh,
that. But
that's
like the
sweet.
parents are like right there with them, like helping them shake it and be like, all right, you have to shake it, and then you have to sing the song, and then they're singing the song, and it's just like they're getting to like to help them with it and like see it, and then like it's just a bonding experience for them. So like yeah, it's definitely been one good aspect of this, because they're getting to
Yeah.
like really see like what goes on and like help their kid like through it and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And then the hope is, when, not if, schools get back to normal and COVID is gone finally, that appreciation for what's going on in music carries over into the school year, and there's going to be more advocacy with, how can I help you in here? What do you need help with when it comes to music and things like that? So hopefully that continues. Okay, so when it comes to getting your admin, families, we've touched on this a little bit, and also the community more involved, what are ways outside of COVID probably that you suggest doing that?
Yeah. Um, so, well, there's a couple of ways. So for admin. Well, one thing definitely that I always like advocate is just making sure that when you are going in for like for example, like your evaluations or things, because like, sometimes like when an admin comes into your room, it's like funny, like you can sometimes like you'll have like a really great admin that like will just be like, oh yeah, I could tell you were doing this and you did this and then you tied this in together with reading and you did all these things, like, and you just were, and they understand like that everything has a purpose and like
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to see it. And then some admin are not as good at catching it, so they just see like, oh, you did a song, and then, oh, you did this,
Yeah.
but like that's it. And I'm like, no, there's a whole structure. So like at least when you're going in for evaluations and things, like I always make sure that I know like exactly what standards that I had and how I like my little game plan is like how it all ties together. I'll
Mm-hmm.
typically even like type it up and like have it like as a lesson plan like to give them, just so that, because like I've had admin before where it's like you're going in circles and you're trying to explain it, because like I don't want to be docked for that evaluation thing
Nope.
because I actually did it, you're just not understanding. So
Yes.
making sure that you're really going in there with a game plan. I mean, if you're lucky to have like the first admin I had, oh my gosh, she was amazing. Like literally pulled out things I didn't even know I was doing, and I was like, man, you're like just so great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she was really great. I miss her very much. But yeah, so just coming in with a game plan for that and just knowing like what, exactly what standards you were doing and how this ties into this, and like being able to answer that so that like you're able to have as high, as a
Mm-hmm.
score as possible, just because it's easier for them to see it in like, a regular classroom teacher. But if they're
Right.
not like versed in music and art and things, like they might not be able to catch that as easily.
Yeah.
So that's just one way of advocating for yourself, just for yourself as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as for like parents and community and things outside of like informative, I'll always try and advocate at concerts too, because for example, we have our giant winter concert that we do every year. That's all of the kids from pre-K to fifth, and it stresses me out
Oh my
completely.
gosh.
But it's great, and it literally is always a packed house. Like we've gotten to the point where we have to have two separate shows. Like we can't do it all at once because everybody comes. So that's really exciting. And everyone's very sad that I canceled it.
Well, yeah, but you're like,
But
hello.
I know, but I mean, it just had to be done. And
I
I'm not gonna
know.
lie, I'm kind of excited for.
Yeah, well, performances are a lot of work. So that is one way to advocate. Y'all want to come help me with that? Because I need help.
Yeah, yeah. But as far as that, I'll always have something in the flyer. So like, I just got something from like the NAFME website or something, but it'll just talk about like little facts about like how music improves like all
Mm,
different parts of your life and whatnot, and different ways that you can advocate. It comes with like little ideas for the parents and things. So I'll
yeah.
always do that. But my favorite thing to show, which I always do for the winter concert, my high school band director showed me this. I can't remember where he got it, but it was a video basically of a band director like being like, I know that like people say, oh, 90% is good, or like 80% on a test is good. And they're like, but 90% of the notes is not good. So
Mm-hmm.
then he made his band play like with 90% accuracy, and then 80%, and then 70%. And he went all the way to like 50%. And he's just like, that's just not good. Like band has
Mm,
to be perfect in all of this. And so then he just like starts talking about how it's much more intricate and more complicated than like people understand, and like they're using all aspects of their brain, and like it's just a 5-minute video, but like by the end of it everyone's like
yeah.
you never think about it like that. Like they have to be perfect for this piece to sound perfect. And that's
Mm,
just like a whole nother side of like using your brain and all these things. And they're like, wow, like there's so much more that goes into it that like I didn't know. And so they're more appreciative of it after the fact.
oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was in band in high school and college, but my marching band instructor in high school was the one. I mean, I learned the most life skills that carried on with me into life that in that class, because it wasn't just about marching around with my clarinet. It was about teamwork and, and I feel like as an elementary music teacher, I brought a lot of that into my classroom. And that happens in the elementary music classroom without people realizing there's so much partner work, small groups, whole group instruction, individual. Everybody gets along, and you don't have to pair the groups or group them together by, like reading level like they are in their classroom, but you can just group the kids together. And I just love that. And when you explain that to people, I feel like the times I've explained that, we all work together as a team in here. We're not individuals. We're all including each other. There's just something magical that happens in the music room that unless you're in there to see it, it's just kind of like you don't get it. So
Well,
it is
that,
kind
and
of
I
hard to
love what you
explain.
said about the reading level thing, just because, like,
Hmm.
especially for that, like, the kids know, like, what reading level they're in. Like, I
Yeah.
literally had, like, a group of kids the other day say, oh, yeah, we're in the lower class. And I was like, you are
Hmm.
not the lower class. That is not what that means. And then, like, but in music, of course, like, you're not
Yeah.
grouped like that.
Right.
Like this person can be with this person, or they can be with
Yeah.
this person. And they also know that they're, like, not going to be mean to each other, or not, like,
Yeah.
not be partners with so and so, because otherwise you don't get to do the fun stuff. And
Yeah.
they don't want to just sit back and watch, like,
Hmm.
everybody having the fun. So it really is like that safe space and atmosphere that they don't even necessarily get in their own classrooms. And so it's just really important to, like, let everyone know that as well. Like, this is a safe space. Like, they get to do
Yeah.
this. They get to know you, talk and probably bond with people that they probably wouldn't just in their regular classroom, because, like, when they're doing a dance or things, like, they don't care who their partner is. They're having lots of fun, and they don't
Exactly.
care, like, if Sally Sue's next to them and they don't really
Yeah.
like Sally Sue. So
Yeah.
it's just different, because
Yeah.
they're having fun and they're learning at the same time.
Oh, so true. That's so good. And yeah, that's just all of that's so good. And it's the perfect way to advocate. And just, if you are in your classroom, it's just inviting, and you're not going to always have them do it, but just the teachers, hey, why don't you just come maybe 5 minutes early, just even one time, just to watch your kiddos. We have this really fun activity at the end of class we want to show you. And then what's cool is the teachers will probably see kids that are doing an activity together, maybe that in their own classroom they can't get them to even like say a word to each other,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, wait, how are you getting these kids to talk in here? And you're like, because they know that's my expectations, and because it's music class, it's different in here, it's just a different environment. And so I just think having teachers be able to see that is so special.
Yeah, I've done that. I definitely, if I remember, because I don't always remember to do that, but if I know that, like, there's something that they're doing, whether it's like a dance or like an instrument piece or something, I'll try to, like, remind them. And some of them won't always get back, but that's more because I love my principal, but she loves to talk too much at their data chats, and she holds them a little too late, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, Miss.
Yeah.
But other than that, they just, yeah, they'll come back, and then, like you said, they'll see it and they'll be like, oh, wow, like, that was so exciting. And they might see, like, a kid that is not necessarily the best behaved or not necessarily the most academic go-getter, like, being
Mm-hmm.
really great at, like, an instrument, or,
Mm-hmm.
like, really taking, leadership in the music room. And so then they get to see, because there are definitely kids that are great for me that I'm like, oh, I love that kid. And then everyone else is like, what are you talking about? And I'm like,
Yep.
what are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I know, right? It's so crazy. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is the preconceived notion of some kids, or you're told
Mhm.
information about them without you ever even having a chance to get to know them first. And so you're just like, don't tell me that, because I want to get to know them on my own, because the
That was
behavior,
what the last
yeah, so
music teacher
frustrating.
before me did. Like,
Uh,
before I even got there, like, he was showing me the room, and he was like, yeah, but this is a bad group of kids. They're really hard and all this stuff. And I was just, like, expecting so much worse than, like, what I came into. And I was like, they're not bad. They just want to be loved and appreciated. And I guess you
mm-hmm.
didn't do that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, they're great. Like, I don't
Yeah.
like that idea. Yeah, like you said, like,
Yeah.
you should let them make their own assumptions.
Hmm. And like you said, there are going to be kids who thrive in music. And that's what's
Mhm.
great about music classes, because the schools that don't have music, not that these kids will never find their musical potential, but because of music teachers, these kids are coming in your room who maybe have sang for the first time ever, or have gotten to play an instrument for the first time ever, or written a rhythm, or whatever is going on in the music room. And they're all of a sudden, they're finding that they kind of have a natural talent for it, where they have
Yeah.
been struggling in math, reading, even PE, or wherever else. And all of a sudden they're like, wow, I actually feel successful in this class. And their self-esteem starts going up. They start feeling proud of themselves. And it really does start happening. And that's a huge way to advocate too, is you telling that teacher or telling that child's parent, guess what? Your child, I can tell, really has a good voice. I don't know if anybody's told you that before. And a lot of times these parents are like, what?
Yeah.
So amazed. I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I like doing that, especially for, like, if it is like a kid I know that has been struggling or things. Like, I'll make sure to also try and call home to them with, like, a positive call, just because I know that, like, there'll be those parents that are like, what? And then you, like, tell them, like, no, they did really, and they're like, oh, thank you so much for
yeah.
calling.
Yeah, they're just expecting another phone call. Like, oh, I can't
Yeah.
handle one more. Yeah, that's awesome. The surprise calls are fun. So do you have any other advice about anything we talked about or anything else that you would like to share with music teachers listening?
Oh gosh, I feel like I don't know. I feel like I could just talk about this forever, but I'm trying to think. Um, I mean, we talked about a lot of things, but I will say one other thing that I do like to do just for advocating even is just collaborating with like the other you like with the middle and high schools,
Mm.
because that's also important, because like for me, I know at least for me, like in the first 2 years, like because normally at my when I went to middle school when I was in elementary, the middle school band would come to elementary and they
Mm-hmm.
would show us the instruments, and then we'd have a petting zoo, and you got to try the instruments and all that. And so that's how I like ended up deciding like, oh, I want to do saxophone, because my mom at first was like, before they had brought the instruments over, she was like, you're going to do band in middle school. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to do cheerleading. I don't want to do band. Like, I don't want to do band. And I was like really adamant against it, which I don't remember this, but apparently that happened.
Yeah.
And then we did the petting zoo, and I like played the saxophone, and I was like, oh, I have to play it. And she was
Yeah.
like, so it was just like getting to play it made that happen for me. And it's just like, I guess the kids don't really like get like the transition to like band if they're not getting to see the instruments. Cause like you can
Mm-hmm.
teach them about like, the woodwind family and things, but it's like a lot different when they get
Mm-hmm.
to try it. So I always try, not right now, obviously, because of COVID.
Right.
So normally I would have the middle school or the high school band, whichever one I could, come over and like play for the 5th grade, and then they would have like a petting zoo night, where they get to try the instruments and
Mm-hmm.
things, because then that's when the kids are like, I have to do band, and you don't, want their appreciation of music to just stop in elementary. Like
Oh,
you want them to
right.
keep going, and so if you're not collaborating with where they're going to next, then they're just gonna be like, oh, music's done, and then they're just gonna move on. The first 2 years I maybe had like 1 or 2 kids do band, and now it's like I have more, because they're like, expecting it, and they're all excited when they get to 5th grade, because they're like, oh, I get to try out the instruments and
Oh,
like
yeah.
stuff. So it's like a fun thing for them. So
Yeah.
just making sure that you're also collaborating with like the whatever grade level you're in. So if you're in middle, like collaborating with elementary, and like making sure it's all like flowing, because most of the kids are going to go probably to
Mm-hmm.
that middle or high school. Like some will go somewhere else, but most of them are going to feed into that. So you want to make sure that you're building those relationships there as well.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. It's so weird because you're talking about this, and I have a 5th grader, and it's so weird because we've already had this conversation with him. He's adamant about not wanting to do band. And okay, so funny when you said weather, he's obsessed with weather. And so he has decided in 6th grade, he's just going to take weather classes. And we said, buddy, it doesn't work that way. No, but I'm just going to do weather. So with that said, I do think they bring the instruments over and let them see them and try them out, because when we've taken him to like a couple of years ago, we took him, or maybe it was last year, took him to a high school football game, and all 3 of my boys seeing the band, you can talk to them about band, like you said, and
Mm-hmm.
see it on a movie or whatever, but they were like, all their mouths just dropped, like seeing the marching band. And I said, see, isn't that awesome? And they're like, oh my God. And then we got to tell them that me and their daddy were both in marching band, not the same one, but,
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
yeah, I just think it's so neat. But like you said, that's a huge way to advocate, is them to see that there is something past 5th grade music. There's other stuff you can keep going on, and different music careers you can pursue and things like that as well. And so many, you can bring in, back in the day, you could bring in live musicians and things like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, it's just, there's so many ways. And so music teachers listening in, you just keep advocating for music in whatever way that looks like for you, because it's so important. Well, Rainy, I've loved this conversation, and I would love for you to let our listeners know where they can find you online and connect with you.
Yeah, so everything is whimsically musical. It's whimsicallymusical.com, whimsically musical. Well, on Instagram, it's whimsically musical teacher. It
Okay.
used to be whimsically musical, and then I like changed it, and then it won't let me change it back, even though nobody has the name. Nobody
Uh,
has it, but that's Instagram for you. So it's whimsically musical teacher over there. But everything else is whimsically musical on Facebook, on the website, on the world, the email, everything. It's just
okay.
that.
And I'll include
Yeah.
all the links in the show notes for everybody to find and connect with you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I've loved this conversation so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, hey there. Thank you so much for listening into the Elementary Music Teacher podcast. There is an exclusive Facebook group just for listeners of this podcast and any elementary music teacher called the Elementary Music Teacher Community Facebook group. Come on over and join us there, where we have conversations around the podcast episodes and encourage each other each and every week. And also head to my website, thedomesticmusician.com. I have some free resources there that you can download to help you gain traction in your classroom today, as well as the blog and the membership site and all kinds of other goodies to help you keep going in your music teaching journey. I cannot wait to keep connecting with you and encouraging you and spurring you on in your journey of teaching elementary music. Hang in there, have an amazing week, and I will see you soon.